2, 1. All right, we're live on YouTube now. So we will start the broadcast. Hold on one second. Uh-oh. See, it updated that goddamn thing again. And yes? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. No one said anything. All right. Mute yourselves, gentlemen, or at least Robinson, so we can do the bumper music and get started. All right. Broadcast is hot. YouTube is hot. Bumper music is 3, 2. Welcome to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. We are streaming live on youtube.com and coming to your eardrums via podcast on iTunes and all around the world via whatever podcast application you enjoy using the most. It is June the 4th of 2016. I am here, as always, with my very good friends, Chaz and Robinson. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
All right. You can get in touch with us via facebook.com/soberhappyhour. Gmail, our official email, is soberhappyhour@gmail.com. And we also have a Twitter @SoberHappyHour. If you like us on Facebook, please leave us a like and a comment. If you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, then leave a comment, a rating, a review, and tell your friends, because that's how the Sober Happy Hour grows like a fungus among us. But it was a good week. Robinson, are you still in Vietnam?
I am still in Vietnam, yes.
How's it going?
I think it's going pretty good. It's hard to tell. I'm sitting in Vung Tau, and I'm at the Urban Cafe. There's only one, so it's not hard to find. And
there's only one cafe, or there's only one urban cafe?
There's only one urban cafe.
Got it.
In Vung Tau. And I'm going to be here until 6 o'clock this evening. And I have invited about 300 people, and maybe one or two will show up, to come and join me for an English conversation. I'm just going to sit here and chat with whomever happens to show up and help them to pronounce English words better. And actually the topic of my discussion today is the difference between UK and US
English
ways of line for the movies, and in the UK we queue up for the cinema. Little things.
Yeah.
Nice.
You push a trolley through the market, or you grab a shopping cart for the grocery store.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. Or if you're in the Midwest, you get a basket for the Piggly Wiggly. One of them rolling baskets, the fancy ones.
In English, we say, "Have you eaten yet?" And in the South, you say, "Jeet jet."
Jeet jet.
Jeet jet, some supper.
You hungry? You want some eggs? Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah. That's
I
funny.
mean, there's so many different dialects and ways of saying simple things, you know.
Right. You don't even
And
think
that's
about that.
the whole purpose of my course is to teach people different ways of saying the same things that have the same meaning, or the way to say the same thing with different meanings. Like,
There was
are
a
you hungry or are you hungry?
there was a
It's the
great
subject that is emphasized.
Yeah.
there was a great quiz
You know?
on Facebook like a long time ago where
Your
you
mic is
take
a little
it.
quiet.
Yeah. We can't hear you very well, Chaz.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. You just got to get a little closer.
All right. So a few like 2 years ago or so, there was a on Facebook a quiz where you went and you took it, and basically it would just by the words you use would tell you where you lived. And so
Oh,
there are
I remember this.
there are dialects all over like tiny little neighborhoods almost, and mine was Chandler, Mesa, Gilbert, so Tempe, like exactly where I live. And the one thing that really set it
Wow.
apart was that we do not have a word, like one word, for drive-through liquor stores.
Do they
just
in
call them
other
drive-through.
places?
Yeah, other places do. It's like, but we just have drive-through liquor stores.
Interesting.
Other places it's like
But
a
a lot of places call it a
brew-through
packing.
or a. Yeah, other places would call it like something weird, but we just had no name for it.
Huh.
Or a laundromat.
Laundromat.
In the UK, they call it a laundrette.
I
Laundrette.
remember, what was it? I took that quiz, and it got really close for me as well. The only problem is that I've lived pretty long periods of time in fairly different places, like Northern California, where they say things like hella, and Southern
Mhm.
California, where they use the word dude and man a lot, and like.
Totally.
And then in the Phoenix, Arizona area, where I would say the Phoenix dialect is almost as generic American as it comes, though. There aren't a lot of weird things in the Arizona Metro Phoenix dialect. But it is pretty interesting because even how you define or the words that you use for soda pop, right? Carbonated beverages
Yeah.
makes a big difference because in some parts of the rural parts of our country, they call every type of soda Coke.
Yeah.
That's
So
I
you
do.
say, yeah, I'm gonna have a Coke. Well, what kind of Coke? A Sprite. Are you
Yeah.
fucking kidding me right now?
Well, that's excellent
Yes, we
marketing
do.
on Coke's behalf.
Right?
Yes.
Hey, Chaz.
Yeah.
Chaz, do you have
Yes.
the ability to turn the volume up on your mic?
Oh, don't do that. I hear you plenty loud.
Oh, okay. I can
I
barely
hear him
for
very
some
loud.
reason.
Okay.
Okay.
So is this fine if I'm right here? Is that okay?
That sounds good to me.
All right,
Okay.
it sounds fine to me because I can control you up and down a little bit, but
Mhm.
both of you are pretty hot tonight, which is fine. I'd
All right.
rather you be loud than quiet, to be honest. So
Yeah.
wherever
Yeah,
we're
but if
at
I
right
turn
now, let's
mine-
stay there.
If I turn my mic down, it cuts down on the background noise. So just let
And
me
you
know.
you can do that, and I could raise you up a little bit because I have both of you down to about a quarter volume right now on the whole.
All right. I'm going to kill mine about 20% right there. So
Okay.
you can bring me up if you need to.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it doesn't make any difference if you turn the volume down and then I crank your volume up if you don't get the microphone closer to your face.
I don't know if I can get it any closer, but I'll give it a try here. Hang on one second.
All right. Sounded like a ukulele.
I know, it's the... I have
That's
to
funny.
move my computer away a little bit.
Move the pooter.
Now I am very close.
All right. See, now I can adjust you up and down a little, and we won't hear the
Okay.
background noise as much.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So we, I, I posted something on the internets regarding the fact that it was confirmed this week
Yes.
that Prince Rogers Nelson, our dearly departed prince, did indeed die of an opioid overdose, specifically fentanyl, which I found to be very interesting. Now, that being said,
Fentanyl.
yeah. Now, as far as I know, I mean, fentanyl is a monster of an opiate. It is not your run-of-the-mill Vicodin or even high-level Percocet. Like, fentanyl is the bee's knees to a drug addict. And typically, but not always, fentanyl is prescribed as a dermal patch, where you would put the patch on and it's this extended release sort of lasts all day kind of situation. And what's interesting about it is I'm just hypothesizing here. I could be completely wrong. But if he was using the fentanyl in patch form, or they also make lollipops where you can literally suck your lollipop and get your drugs. Was he also using large doses of pill form opioids, which then the mixture of the two together, the high level of fentanyl getting into his body via the patch or whatever, plus a Vicodin or Percocet prescription, and that was the recipe for disaster. Because it would be strange to overdose on just fentanyl alone, because normally it's fairly controlled by the method of delivery. So I posted this thing online, basically saying, now that we've confirmed that Prince died of an opioid overdose, that he was an addict, that he was still reported and not confirmed, and it'll probably never be confirmed, but the reports are that he was 24 hours away from his first visit with an addiction specialist. Will this spark a conversation? And there were quite a few people responding, both people just that you could tell were kind of ignorant and didn't fully understand what it meant to overdose on drugs like these when you weren't a junkie per se. He wasn't a user of illicit drugs who took too much and overdosed and died. He was prescribed this medicine for a very well-known hip problem, and then it got out of control. And then professionals in the medical field who were commenting saying, this is a serious fucking problem. And even some people who were suffering from chronic pain who were replying to some of the other comments that were saying, well, you know, willpower, you know, they were saying, you know, there could be alternative medicine options to deal with the pain, and then these other people that were saying, you have no idea what it's like to live with chronic pain, and then somebody tells you that you should go to a Reiki master and get a fucking back rub, and they could, you know, splash some essential oils on you and you're better. The pain is extraordinary. When it's a physical pain in your joints or your muscles or your hips, like in Prince's case, that if they could come up with some sort of targeted method to numb the pain, these people would choose that 100%, because they don't want to take the narcotics for the rest of their lives and then potentially build up a tolerance and then overdose like Prince. They know that that's a possibility. They're not stupid. But then you probably also have your people who start out taking it for pain, and then they like the way that it makes them feel, and then they start taking more and more and more and more. And if they're in a position where they can afford to continue to take the prescription drugs, they do it that way. Or if they can't afford to continue the prescription drugs because now the problem's gotten so severe that they don't have a job and they can't afford the insurance and the co-pays and everything else, and then they turn to illicit drugs. I mean, it is that complex a problem. And nobody has any answers. Nobody knows the right answer. Because if it can kill a Jehovah's Witness who never abused drugs, didn't even drink alcohol, and at 56 years old can kill him alone in his home, a celebrity, this could happen to anyone. Literally anyone. And nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's not because we don't give a shit. Why don't we talk about it? As a society, why do we avoid this conversation?
Don't know. Honestly.
And the silence is telling to me.
Yeah.
Because do we avoid it out of a lack of ideas? Do we avoid it because it's easier to take somebody like Heath Ledger or Prince or I'm sure any number of other, drug-using celebrities that, didn't die like Chris Farley or John Belushi with a needle in his arm, Philip Seymour Hoffman, but died from prescription drugs? Are we just okay with categorizing them as your run-of-the-mill celebrity junkie who killed themselves, essentially? We idolize doctors. We lionize doctors. We think of them as modern-day gods. They cure our illnesses. They are the smartest kid on the block. Everybody, when they're a kid, wants to be a doctor, or their parents want them to be a doctor. They're wealthy. They're successful. They have all the power.
And whatever the problem is, the doctors always know best.
Right.
If there's an organic cure for, some condition like cancer, and you can go online and find all kinds of ways to get rid of your cancer, but if the doctor says the only way you can do it is to spend every fucking penny you have from your entire family on chemotherapy, then everybody believes that, and they don't even bother to look because look elsewhere because their doctors told them that this is it.
Right.
This is the only thing, and they just believe that.
And the crazy part is that over decades, hundreds of years, centuries, science has developed medicines and treatments and things like that. And then every once in a while, we will take a holistic approach or an herbal approach or an ancient Chinese medicine approach to curing an ailment that has been working essentially for thousands of years in some cases, and then we will figure out a way to take the contents of this herbal tea that has been curing the common cold for thousands of years, and they'll figure out how to take the contents, put it into pill form, and then sell it to you at 6,000 times the price. But if you go to a Chinese medicine doctor and they give you the soup that costs $13, the rest of the world looks at that, the Western world looks at that as nonsense. And I was reading about this, and it was funny because whenever we're about to have a conversation about something on this show, the coincidences start popping up, and they were talking about this on a show that I was watching where for a long time Western scientists have been figuring out ways to synthesize old traditional methods of healing. And then it just, something gets lost in the translation, or we,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And
Science is not perfect. It is
No.
a practice. It's as simple as when they figured out, okay, an orange has vitamin C. So they take this orange and they squeeze the juice out of it and you drink it to get your vitamin C. What they neglect to tell you is that the white skin on the inside of the orange peel, it has another thing that makes your body absorb that vitamin C. So you technically don't get all of the nutrients because you're not getting all of the orange.
right,
You're getting a lot of vitamin C, but it's just going right through you because you're not getting into the pith, which has the riboflavin, which is needed to absorb into your skin
yeah.
or into your system. I mean, so yeah, they try to just find the main ingredient and forget everything else.
And the important part about it is that then we find out, years and years later, oh, we forgot that vital part.
Yeah.
Sorry. But as a society, we've already written it off. Or we've decided that instead of just taking vitamin C, you now have to take this, mixture of something else to try and replicate the same thing that just eating some orange slices would do for, 28 cents a pound. So pain, though, is something totally different. Pain, Robinson, I remember you brought up hypnosis.
Yes.
And what's interesting about hypnosis is that there are some real life studies, there's proof that there are people who are able to essentially tap into parts of their brain and then block out whatever part of the brain produces the sensation of pain. And you can call these people, witches or weirdos. But the fact that we are so familiar now with the human brain, and we know how to map out the human brain and do complex brain surgery where we can target something and then completely leave the other parts alone. Whereas, 100 or even 50 years ago, we had a general idea of how the brain was mapped out, but if we were off even by a millimeter, we were going into the brain to do something, and now you're paralyzed, or you're blind, or you have no sense of taste anymore, right? Like, that doesn't really happen anymore. We have the ability to radio control helicopters with a little hat that we put on our heads. You want to fly the helicopter up and then back down? Like, you just put on a little hat. You can fly this fucking plane upside down. You can control artificial limbs with brain waves. We may not know everything about the human brain. We're scratching the surface, but we know enough that I think if we really wanted to, we could target parts of the brain that equal pain. We are very familiar with the nervous system, and yet we continue to prescribe these deadly opioid medications in huge numbers. Chaz was just saying a few weeks ago that the FDA has changed their directions for doctors to prescribe opioids. Do you remember that, Chaz?
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember what it was?
Are we talking about the pain is the fifth vital sign thing?
No. It was that the FDA just recently changed their recommendation from prescribing opioids for 14 days down to 7 days or something like that.
I don't
And
remember having anything like concrete numbers like that.
I think it's something, maybe it wasn't you that brought it up, but it was more or less that for a long time it was you don't prescribe opioids for more than 14 days. And now they're changing it to 7 days because they're realizing that after 2 weeks of taking high doses of Percocet or fentanyl, that you're going to be physically dependent and that it is going to be hard to stop using it. So we are fully aware that these drugs are very addictive and very dangerous,
Hey, I
and
have
yet
an idea.
we continue to prescribe them like they're candy. What's your idea, Robinson?
You know how women birth control little packages, they come in, like you take this one on each day, and when it comes time for your period, they're basically sugar pills, but you keep
Uh-huh.
taking them just so you're in the habit and you know what day it is and all that. If they prescribed like a 7 packet or even like a 10 packaged little blister package of painkillers where each one gradually got less of a dose, you'd be able to take it on each of those days and taper off at the same time.
I like it
Yeah,
because currently it's here's
that
a
might be a million dollar idea that I just gave away on live YouTube here. Good thing we don't
30
have any listeners.
here's a 30-day supply of your 10 milligram Vicodin, and at the end of 30 days you're cut off, you're done, no refills.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are me, and I've told the story before how I had been off of the opioids and then got hurt and then got a big fat morphine shot, and my brain went, woohoo! Let's do it! If the doctor had given me a prescription like you just described, where it was, cool, so here's some pain medication. For the first 5 days, you're at a full dose. And day 6, it's 3/4 dose. Day 7, it's a half dose. Day 8, it's a quarter dose. Day 9, it's an eighth dose. Day 10, it's a sugar pill. Would that make a difference?
I think it would.
I think it would too. I think that's brilliant. We said it here first, people. Patent pending. Copyright 2016 Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. If we know that these drugs are killing not just the patients, but the loved ones of patients, the children of patients, because as a human race, we suck at disposing of medication. We are so bad at it, it's not even funny. Robinson,
Yes.
if a doctor prescribes you a bottle of pills, and let's say you don't take all of them, or let's say you don't take any of them, and then you're about to pack up and move, what do you do with the bottles of pills that expired 2 years ago that are sitting in your medicine cabinet?
Throw them in the trash.
Throw them in the garbage can. I probably right now in my house have bottles of medication for my kids, cough syrup, and prednisone for my kid with bad lungs, or uh, antibiotics from a sinus infection, or Valium from when Rachel had a surgical procedure, sitting in the cabinet in my kitchen right now, that they say on the bottle, discard after, usually it's like 6 months or a year. And if I were to ever clean out that cabinet, those bottles of pills would get the label ripped off and they get thrown in the garbage can. They have.
Or flushed down the toilet.
That
That's
is
probably
also
better.
what's contaminating our water.
Oh, wait, in the toilet?
Yeah, so we reclaim most of our sewage and it goes through wastewater treatment and becomes tap water in most
I
big
think maybe
cities.
it gets used to water urban like landscape, like sides of the freeway, but I don't think it gets back in the water table.
Not back in the water table, but becomes part of the city water supply, which in a lot of cities is turned back into drinking water.
Okay.
I once did a documentary video shoot when I was working in Newport Beach at a wastewater treatment plant for a guy that was doing some sort of a documentary on water in California, and it's the craziest process. The water comes in, it goes through a series of channels with screens and meshes and filters and chlorine, and there's one part where they literally use beetles, this huge mass, like think of like a swimming pool that is just the entire top of the swimming pool is this thick black mass, and those are beetles that eat all of the organic material that's
Dung
floating
beetles.
on the water. And they're not dung beetles because they live in the water. I don't
Okay.
remember what kind of beetles they are, but they eat shit, basically. And then that water gets filtered again, and then again, then again, then again, then again, and it gets additives like chlorine and bromine and things to kill the bacteria, and then filters, 15 times, and then it's back in the water supply. And there are some communities that drink exclusively, their tap water comes from wastewater treatment. A lot of them, yes, when they treat them less, Robinson, those purple pipes that you see for irrigation, that is non-drinkable water because it hasn't been treated the way that the drinkable water gets treated. But what they're saying is that even though the tap water that we drink as reclaimed water is safe and doesn't and contains not even trace amounts of chemicals like drugs and lead and heavy metals and shit like that. It's like some ridiculous 5 parts per billion that it's allowed to contain of certain types of chemicals. The fact that we water our agriculture and we water our cattle and our chickens and the things that we eat with the less treated water means that some of these cows and these chickens and these plants and these animals are ingesting some of these medications that we flush down the toilet. And the levels of what are the, not the antidepressants, but the anxiety type medications. Benzos. They say that really high levels of benzodiazepine in cattle, which is then inevitably in their system, and then we eat them, and we're ingesting this stuff as well. And it sounded a little conspiracy theory to me, but it also does make sense. So taking the medication to the hospital when you're done with it and dropping it off, but then part of me, the frugal part of me, who knows that that bottle of amoxicillin says that it should be discarded after 6 months, but it's good for years. Well, what if I need it? I'm going to hang on to it, because if I have an infection, why go buy more? And you start justifying it. Same with pain pills. Pain pills don't go bad. Why would you get rid of pain pills? Those are expensive. They're hard to get. They don't get prescribed as easily when you need them as when you don't, or so it seems. And if you need them and you go to the urgent care, they basically tell you urgent cares don't prescribe narcotics, period. Has to be prescribed by a doctor. So, okay, I'm going to hang on to them. Like, I'll tell you right now, Rachel has bad knees. She's had a couple of knee surgeries. And she has hung on to prescription pain medications that she's been prescribed after the surgeries so that if she makes a mistake like she did, a year ago where we went on like a 5-mile walk around the city and she forgot to wear her knee brace and she was in so much pain that she knew she could, take a half of a pain pill and feel better. But walking into the doctor's office saying my knee hurts, the doctor's going to say, well, put some ice on it. Here's some ibuprofen. So I don't know, man. Like it is a strange, strange world when you start talking about prescription anything, let alone prescription pain medication. And yet then there'll be somebody else who will be prescribed 120, 30 milligram Percocet pills every month. And you know goddamn well that person's not using 120 30 milligram Percocets every month. But they come in every 30 days and they refill that prescription.
I just had another brilliant idea.
Let's hear it.
They make time release medication so that when you take it, and they also are really good at other kinds of time release where you can take a time release enzyme and you can add it to something after a certain amount of time. If they added a time release enzyme to opioids, that if you didn't take this opioid after 30 days, that enzyme will suddenly just eat the opioids and make it unusable.
Right.
You can take it, but
kill
you
it.
won't get high.
Render it inert.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
smart. Or
Yeah.
I'll do you one further, Robinson. If we want to get into the high tech world of pharmaceuticals and future technologies, we have the ability to target genes and DNA. So they have to cook you up a special batch of drugs that only work for you. And if anybody else takes them, nothing happens. That'd be cool.
Wow. That sounds very interesting.
But then we get into like bioterrorism and things like from the TV show Fringe, where I'm gonna release this virus and it's only going to infect people with green eyes because they have those same genetic markers. And now everybody in the coffee shop that had green eyes is found dead the next day. And then the FBI has to investigate with their Fringe division and send out the guy from Dawson's Creek to investigate. Joshua Jackson, that was his name. Not Dawson, right?
Yeah.
Who is Dawson?
James
I never watched that show.
Vanderbeek.
Oh, Vanderbeek. That's right. Fucking Vanderbeek. What a name. They were both weird-looking guys, too.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of them were attractive, but all the chicks wanted him. Vanderbeek looks like he might have Down syndrome, and Joshua Jackson just always looks angry. He's got that crease on his brow that just makes him look grumpy all the time. So, I don't know. My frustration is such that these tragedies happen, and I remember because, okay, you can't compare Heath Ledger to Prince. You just can't. Prince had a 40-year career in music and was a mega superstar. Heath Ledger had a couple good movies and was in Brokeback Mountain. They both died from prescription drugs. When Heath Ledger died, though, that was like right before the Dark Knight Batman movie came out, where he played the Joker and was incredible in that film. And we talked about it for a week. We speculated about it for a week prior to that. And then it just fizzled out, went away. Oh, it was a tragedy. Prince, nobody wanted to believe that he died of a drug overdose because he was fucking Prince. What was that? And yet, here we are, a few weeks later, and oh my gosh, there is all these noises happening right now. We are now, we just found out a couple of days ago that Prince died of a drug overdose, confirmed by the medical examiner, and we're not fucking talking about it. It is making me insane. But I know that people want to talk about it because little obscure nobody me, posts about it online and get a whole huge list of responses and comments. This is something that people want to talk about. I'm wondering if we just don't know where to begin. I'm wondering if we don't know who to blame.
I forget what it was I was doing the other day, but it was something about, oh yeah, it was I think I posted it online. It was about, is there an actual thing, is there such a thing anymore as accidents? Like, do people actually believe in accidents anymore? But the point of it is, I'm not getting that, the whole thing with Prince was an accident. What I'm getting at is the whole idea of blame. We're always looking to blame something, blame one person or another, blame this, blame that. I think it gets a little bit obnoxious to me personally.
Trying to find blame?
That's what. Yeah, trying to find blame. I mean, I think from my own experience and what I've seen with friends who have experienced addiction and things, especially the opioids, coming from, say, having surgery or any kind of injury like that. I mean, I just dropped my dad off today at the emergency room. He broke his ankle.
Bummer.
And I was telling him, don't let him give you that shit. Don't let him pump you up for all that crap. I think there's a breakdown probably in just the way that we take care of each other and take care of our our patients and everything in hospitals and whatnot, that just eventually leads to this kind of thing happening. And I think it's a whole series of breakdowns and a whole series of things that happens, not necessarily just one person or one action or another.
Could it be the commercialization of medicine as well? That we used to send doctors on house calls, right? They used to come to your house when you weren't feeling well. They would treat you at home. They would take care of you. They would come for a follow-up visit the next day. Now, you go to the hospital or to the doctor's office, it's very impersonal. They don't know you. And because they don't know you, and I mean, shit, I could honestly do this tomorrow if I wanted to. I could go into a doctor's office. I could tell them I have pain. They would prescribe me pain medication. Why? Because I am a 33-year-old man without a history of rehab in my medical charts and without a history of arrests or drug arrests or anything like that. That I'm well spoken. I could probably walk into a doctor's office to a doctor that doesn't know me, and they would gladly prescribe me some narcotic pain medicine because I can be pretty manipulative and get what I want. And there would be nothing that doctor would do to follow up or check up on me or anything like that. It would be, here's your drugs, and go pick it up at the pharmacy, where the pharmacist will tell you, take it with food, it could make you dizzy, only take it every 6 hours. And if you're at home popping one every 30 minutes, no one's checking up on you.
The basic information that the pharmacist has to give you. But when you go in to get the pain medication, they only know, and we talked about this before, the doctor asks you on a scale from 1 to 10.
Yep.
And that's going to go in your record. Whatever you say, you might be at a 4, but you're saying you're at a 10 just because you want some kick-ass, drugs. You want it to work better, be stronger, and he'll prescribe you Percocet instead of Vicodin.
Yep.
They gotta take your fucking word on that shit, and it's not scientific.
Yeah,
America is the only country. We're the only country in the world that allows direct-to-consumer marketing of medications.
Right.
The only one in the world. Nowhere else do they have any kind of, they don't have commercials with "Ask your doctor if whatever the fuck is right for you."
I think they do in New Zealand as well.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's us and New Zealand.
And we're also the country that has the biggest amount of lawsuits in the world.
Oh yeah.
Everybody is privileged, and if you don't give me exactly what I want, when I want it, and how I want it, no matter how much I have to pay for it, then it's your fault.
And now, with the age of the internet, it is far too easy for... I was talking to my friend David, who's a doctor. There are doctors who are well known in the medical industry, even just in the small little town that he works in, as being the doctors who very liberally prescribe opioid pain medication. And it's even on the internet that you can find, like, there's a certain word, I don't remember what the word was that he used, and I probably don't even want to share it on this show, but there's a word for these kinds of doctors. And if they're hanging loose, you can look online and see, oh, okay, Dr. Fletcher in Payson, he's the doctor to talk to if you have pain. Just like medical marijuana. There are doctors online that you can find that are, proponents of medical marijuana you come in and say, I have pain, or I have sleep issues, or I have
fill in the blank,
irritable bowel syndrome,
and he's got a stack of prescription that's already got his signature pre-made, and he's having his secretary or receptionist just hand them out like candy.
His DEA number is right on the top. Yep.
Yeah,
and
because it's just marijuana,
Right. And they believe that marijuana should be legal. Now, that's a very different thing when we're talking about opiates. And it should be a very different thing.
Yes.
But here's the problem. For every 100 good, normal, self-respecting, upstanding patient who gets their bottle of pills prescribed to them that they're going to use for themselves or hang on to or use as directed, there's somebody that will take that bottle of pills, and they know they could make a quick $1,000 selling the pills to other people, and they don't even consider themselves drug dealers. They're just trying to make a few bucks off of pills that people want. Yeah, it's a hookup. I mean, shit, I'm going to be honest with you right now. That is how I got my drugs, from a person that I worked with who had a mother who was basically had an never-ending prescription to Oxy and didn't use them, but knew she could make a few bucks off of them. So through her daughter was selling these pills to the highest bidder.
And that
So
would be you.
Yep. So I personally had a never-ending supply of these drugs, and my thoughts on the situation are, when I look back, she could get 30 milligram Oxy, 30 milligram Percocet, and 20 milligram morphine, which means she was probably working with 3 different doctors, intentionally getting 3 different medications so that it wouldn't flag the system, and having them filled at 3 very different, probably low-tech pharmacies. Because even though legally CVS and Walgreens have a computer system, they all tie together, they can see, oh, hey, you can't fill this, you can only fill it every 27 days. The little mom and pop pharmacies, just like the little mom and pop doctor's offices, they don't have to follow those same rules.
Right.
Big
Or
doctor's offices.
Pain management centers you don't even have to go to see the pharmacist. They just give you the pills right there.
You don't even have to see a doctor.
Yeah.
Because if you
go there and say, I'm here for my refill, they just hand them to you and you sign a piece of paper and you walk out.
Well, because just like any clinic that does anything medically based, there has to be one licensed physician on staff for upwards of like 100 PAs and nurse practitioners and nurses and X-ray techs and even like those tattoo removal, laser tattoo removal places. They have to technically have a doctor that owns the place. But then they just have techs that run the place. And the doctor is off on his boat in Bermuda, 29 days out of the month. And as long as he shows up every once in a while, his license is being used to run this clinic. But he's not actually there overseeing it. Right.
They have a rubber stamp with his signature.
They absolutely do. It's crazy. I remember when I first went to an addiction doctor, even that addiction doctor had pre-printed 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper with the prescription for the medication all filled out, because it was basically a turnstile kind of place, and then it even had his signature pre-signed on the little piece of paper, and all they'd have to do on this PDF form would be to fill out my name and my birth date, and then they would hit print, and it would print out of the machine, and I had my prescription. So if someone were to get a hold of a stack of his pre-printed forms that he had printed at the local Kinko's, imagine what harm could be done. And there's nobody checking up on it. Because if nothing red flags, the pharmacist doesn't call every doctor every time, every prescription for everything. They only call when there's a problem. They only call if you're trying to fill it early, or too often, or the insurance doesn't want to cover it. But if you're cash paying, because it's only good business for you to pay cash, so then you turn around and sextuple your money, they have no reason to contact the doctor. And like I said last week or the week before, I don't even have to, my name on that prescription is meaningless. Because, Robinson, if I got a prescription for 120 Oxy tomorrow, and I went to CVS and dropped it off, I could send you into CVS without identification, without anything, and you could pick it up as long as you knew my birth date. That is insane to me. And I remember the first time that I did that. There was another friend of mine who had, what's that? Rheumatoid arthritis. And she was young. She didn't like pain pills. She just kind of fought through the pain. And she knew my situation. And there was one time where she had basically been collecting prescriptions from her doctor who would write her prescriptions for Vicodin or something. She never took them, so she didn't really care. But she's like, well, I'll tell you what, I'll drop one off, and then you can go pick it up. And I said, no, I can't. That's insane. How could I do that? Just give my birth date is, January 1st, 1978. Just give my birth date. I'm like, come on. They're not going to hand me a bottle of Vicodin with your name on it. She's looking at me like, yes, they will. What are you talking about? So I remember I'm walking up to the pharmacy. My knees are knocking because I feel like I'm going to get fucking arrested or something. And I walk up to the pharmacist and I say, hi, yeah, I'm trying to pick up a prescription for my friend, and I'm just trying to do her a favor. I mean, I just don't know if that's okay. Like, is that something I can do? What's her birth date? I'm like, January 1st, 1978. What's her name? Blah, blah, blah. All right, sign here. Do you need to talk to the pharmacist? No. I just want to get the fuck out of here. Okay. What's the copay? Oh, no copay. Okay, here you go. What the fuck? Seriously? You just gave me enough fucking prescription pain medication to kill myself, and you just handed it to me willy-nilly. No ID, no checking up on it, no calling the doctor, no verifying with the patient, nothing. All I had to do was give the name and the birth date, and they handed it to me. They didn't even look me in the eye. That is a serious flaw in this system. Chaz.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Your medication.
Which one?
Is any of it considered a controlled substance?
Yes.
Could I walk into the pharmacy and pick it up for you?
No.
Why?
Because the pharmacy I go to does require that you have a photo ID.
And if it doesn't match your name, but I know all of your information, and I told them I was just there to pick it up for you because you were at home with a Singapore butt slug and you couldn't get out of bed?
I'm pretty sure they probably still wouldn't give it to you.
I bet you dollars to donuts that they fucking would.
Dollars to donuts? I haven't heard that one in 20 years.
I'm bringing it back.
Bringing it back, all right.
Yeah, we could try it.
And it's mind-boggling to me because Rachel and I have different last names.
Yes.
And I have picked up dozens of prescriptions for her.
But do they have that record on record
No.
that you are?
Nope.
You sure?
I'm positive.
Okay.
I'm going to show them a marriage license? No, nothing.
Dude, you can't. If I wanted to check into a hotel in Vietnam with a girl, they want to see a marriage license before they'll let us sleep in the same room.
Really?
Legit?
Yes.
Seriously?
Wow.
Yeah.
The only reason hotels in the United States want to see both driver's licenses is because they want to charge you for two people.
Yeah, most countries, but Vietnam is a little bit uptight about. Well, it's actually illegal here for foreigners to copulate with citizens.
What about citizens to copulate with citizens?
I don't know.
So
I
if
don't think they really care.
okay, so two young people want to go get a motel, knock some boots, they're not going to give them a hard time for that?
But I think maybe if the girl has, instead of a marriage license, if she has an ID from like Thailand or something, then they probably don't care.
Huh. Interesting.
I did not know
But
that
yeah.
Vietnam was so.
Conservative.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is. We've mentioned a couple of high-tech ways to try and solve this problem. But I honestly think that there are some low-tech ways to solve this problem. And the lowest tech way possible is to get to know your goddamn patients better. To
That would work.
stop practicing medicine as a means to drive a Mercedes
Yes.
and start practicing medicine because you want to help people again.
Yeah, grow a fucking conscience. I dated a girl many years ago whose father was a dermatologist, and he had his own practice. And every once in a while, somebody would come in with some kind of weird skin condition, and he would look at that and think to himself, I can get 3 vacations out of this
Shit.
and a new membership to the golf course. You know?
Yeah.
And he's just looking at everything with dollar signs in his eyes, and he actually decided that that was just like a horrible thing to do, so he quit his practice and went to work for a hospital where he had no control over what was being charged for what.
Yeah. And made a
You know?
salary.
He made a salary. The hospital made stupid profit, but
Yeah.
at least it was off of his conscience.
And the hospital administrators made 8 figures.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it used to be, even just 100 years ago, it used to be that doctors were very well-respected members of the community. The community as a whole, because they cared for patients. They cared about making people comfortable and healthy. And you look at countries. I was just watching a documentary, and I think I mentioned it before, but in the UK, France, one of those 2 countries, we'll say the UK, doctors make a good living. They are definitely on the upper middle class of things, if not on the wealthy side. They aren't the gazillionaires that some doctors are in the United States, but they get bonuses from the hospital or the clinic or the practice that they work for preventative care. The doctors
Yes.
in the UK
England.
get a bonus for every person that they get to quit smoking. For every fat person they get to lose weight and get off the diabetes medication, because it is a government-run healthcare program, so every sick person is costing the government more money. Our for-profit system in this country works the opposite fucking way. Hey, you want to be a big fat slob? We've got a medication for you that'll keep you alive longer so you can keep eating
So
Tombstone
you can
pizza.
eat food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to make
To
sure
be
that your rascal scooter is covered by your insurance so that you can continue to be a 400-pound fat son of a bitch who can't even walk anymore. Oh,
yes, and when you get diabetes, we'll take care of that too.
yep. The amputation is on the house. And we're going to make sure that in our grocery stores, where we sell chemically laced fat fuck food, we're going to have a motorized shopping cart for your fat ass to roll around in so that you can make sure to hit the cheese aisle in comfort.
The Hippocratic Oath has become the Hippocratic Oath.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
Oh, so I gave you the Rascal Scooter and the Lipitor for your high cholesterol and the diabetes medication because, oh yeah, you're a big fat fatty. And, oh, sitting in that chair all day, now you have pain in your spine. So on top of that, I'm going to prescribe you opioids, and then the opioids make it so you can't shit. So I'm going to prescribe you some prescription strength Colace. And then because of that,
and don't forget the high blood pressure from being.
oh yeah,
constipated.
we absolutely, we got to get you on some of those beta blockers. And your circulation's not great anymore because of the diabetes. So we're going to prescribe you these leg cuffs that you have to plug in to your outlet in your bed. And you know what? We'll make sure we get you one of those fancy hospital beds so that you don't have to sit up because you're too damn fat to do that. So we'll kind of get you a bed that'll kind of shove you out into your rascal scooter. But while you're laying there eating Haagen-Dazs and popping pills, we're going to put compression slippers on you so that we make sure you don't get an embolism and fucking die, because we're making millions off of you every year. We want to keep you alive and fat as long as possible.
I want to make sure that everyone understands that this is not an anti-fat person dialogue.
Not at all.
Nothing to do with people that are overweight. We don't judge anybody for their weight, but this is about the doctors and how they prescribe for profit.
Because instead of
advantage
taking
of those people that are overweight.
Absolutely. Instead of taking the person who is borderline obese and prescribing them vegetables and vitamins and exercise, they prescribe them medication that allows them to continue to consume the types of food that they're consuming. And then we put them on disability. So then they can't work. And the disability check is so small that they can't afford the vegetables and the vitamins and the good for you food. So they're buying fast food because that's the cheapest. So now they're becoming...
and by the way, there are a whole bunch of fast food places that now accept the EBT.
Absolutely.
Food stamp card. You can go to KFC now and swipe that EBT
advertised on the outside of the Jack in the Box up the street from my house. On the marquee, it says, "Now accepting EBT."
Yep.
So we
means food stamps, for those of you who don't know.
Electronic
they don't give you actual stamps
transfer
anymore. They just give you a little swiping card.
Right. Electronic benefits transfer. You get a card. They load it up every 2 weeks. And this is why. So I'm going to tell you a sad story. My wife has a friend. Single mom. Doesn't work. Very poorly behaved children. They literally eat McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She is on welfare, living off of welfare and the disabled grandmother's Social Security. They essentially live, if you've ever seen the show Hoarders, they live in a home that is floor to ceiling with stuff in a very unsafe environment for these children. She is morbidly obese. The children, both of the children were actually here at my house today, swimming in my pool. One is younger than my son. One is older than my son. Both are overweight, undereducated, if you will. And they think that I live in a mansion. I have a swimming pool. I have a big television with video games. I have doors on the bathroom that can be opened and closed. I live in a mansion. And trust me, I do not live in a mansion. There's a pantry full of nutritious food. This, to me, proves like these kids come to my house and they want to eat a fruit cup or a banana or a slice of fresh bread because they get McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And even though kids, I'm sure young kids would love McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner occasionally, their little bodies, their little brains want that nutritious food. My kids are kind of the opposite, right? We cook them breakfast. We cook them, we pack their lunch. We make their dinner, right? It's maybe once a week that we will take them out for food, but it's rarely fast food. And so they feel like, they long for the garbage food, which was the same way that I was when I was growing up. My parents, I remember they bought these frozen TV dinners as essentially emergency food because my mom was in law school, my dad worked, and so if for whatever reason they weren't able to make dinner, we had emergency food that we could just toss in the microwave and cook it, and we weren't allowed to eat them. They were for emergencies. And I remember one night when my dad came home late and my mom wasn't coming home, we got to eat the TV dinners. We were so excited. Salisbury steak and noodles. And even though it was probably disgusting, it was exciting and it was fun. It was delicious, right? So the whole concept of our welfare system in this country is high calorie, high fat, low nutritional value, cheap, cheap, cheap garbage. But in these other countries,
in the nutritional world, it's referred to as the SAD diet, Standard American Diet. SAD.
Standard
SAD.
American Diet. And when you look at the way the other countries do it, it's not necessarily about a dollar amount. It is about nutrition. But the funny part is that there are convenience stores that take EBT, and you can use the EBT if the clerk is nice enough, and they'll ring you up for a bottle of Hennessy or a carton of cigarettes, and they'll ring it up as grocery. So you can pay with your EBT.
This kind of like leads into something that I've been noticing at least. It's called the concept is called the food desert. And that's what happens when you have lower income neighborhoods where grocery stores in general, I mean, we're talking even Food City here,
Right.
Move out. And the
Yep.
only thing left around there are fast food restaurants and other really, really poor nutritional wise
Convenience
choices.
stores with
Convenience stores.
fruit pies and tasty cake.
And so really what we're left with is a country where the most obese people are the poorest. And
Yep.
that eating well and eating nutritious food and just getting there, just getting to a store, is for the wealthier.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about these folks who are, some of them who don't have public transportation, if you're in Phoenix, and I mean, who don't have their own, if you have to use public transportation and you're in Phoenix, how much nutritional food can you bring home from the store on a bus ride?
Right?
You know, you can't even bring milk home, it'll spoil. Anything you basically try to bring home on the bus from a store is going to spoil. It's essentially a systemic issue.
In low-income neighborhoods, fresh fruits and vegetables do not exist. Everything is packaged, everything is processed. You might be able to go to the 7-Eleven and get a package of bologna and a package of white bread, mayonnaise and mustard, but you're not going to find lettuce and tomatoes or apples or bananas or broccoli or cauliflower or asparagus or anything of the like. You're going to find processed meat products, processed cheese food, chips, maybe crackers if you're lucky, candy bars, but they accept EBT at those places. I remember, Robinson, let's think about Oakland. Right in the neighborhood that we lived in, that you still live in. If you go 2 miles in any direction, you run into a dozen liquor stores. There's, or at least there used to be, the burger shop on the corner, the little, greasy spoon, and to get to fresh food, we had to get in the car and drive. Pizza shop, no problem. Convenience store with crap to eat, no problem. Burger shop, no problem. Fresh food, to make your own food, you had to drive a distance away. When I lived in downtown San Francisco, the closest grocery store, because nobody down there drove, it was all public transportation, and really good public transportation, mind you. The closest grocery store was a Safeway that was miles away. And you could go and buy the ingredients to make dinner and spend $22, or you could walk 48 steps out the door and have KFC, Popeye's Chicken, McDonald's, Burger King, and a Taco Bell Pizza Hut within a few blocks. Yeah. And convenience stores on every corner that sold liquor, tobacco, and all the processed bullshit food that you could possibly want. But no grocery stores.
I forgot to bring my charger, and my battery is just about to go. So.
Well, we're about to wrap it up.
Okay.
So I think what we really hit on tonight was doctors aren't doctoring anymore. Patients think the doctor has their best interest in mind and that the doctor is always right and they're the smartest kid in class. And then we have this perpetual cycle of malnutrition combined with prescription drugs that try to counteract the lack of nutritious food that people are eating, which in turn continues to make these giant corporations billions and billions of dollars. Whether it's the processed food companies or the pharmaceutical companies, they're almost working hand in hand to keep us sickly and medicated.
As well as the FDA.
Owned and operated.
Yep.
By the conglomerates.
And there are only, I think, 6 companies in the U.S. that make all of this food. And they all work together to make sure that they stay together and keep the food cheap and easy and convenient and bad for you.
I heard recently that one of those massive agro companies is trying to buy Monsanto. Could you imagine how big this other company must be that they could even consider purchasing something like Monsanto? That is insane.
Yeah.
Monopolies are supposed to be illegal in this country of ours.
Mm-hmm.
In our state, they're unconstitutional. It's in our constitution.
Yep. But I'll tell you right now, that is, when you look at the things that are available to us, like cable television, cell phone providers, the makers of our food, you tell me monopolies are illegal, I tell you, why do I only have the option of Cox Communication for cable in my neighborhood?
Yep. And telephone as well.
So, thank you for listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, coming to you live from Vietnam, Tempe, Arizona, and Phoenix, Arizona. SoberHappyHour@gmail.com, Facebook.com/SoberHappyHour. Follow us on Twitter @SoberHappyHour. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your favorite podcast application. Rate and review the show. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's like right here, maybe there, somewhere. There's a big red button. Just click on it, goddammit. Tell your friends. We'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Robinson, when will you be home? I saw your daughter today.
Yes, I thought she was going to be on the show with us.
No, she was headed back with her dog.
Okay.
Anyway, well, I know you'll be home soon, and we look forward to seeing you back in fair Oakland, California. It was only 115 degrees today in Phoenix.
My God.
Enjoyable weather.
Well, I'll be back Friday.
Excellent. Well, we will see you then, my friend Chaz. Have a lovely rest of your weekend at your event tomorrow. I hope it goes well. And if you or yours is considering getting sober, I highly recommend it. Good night.
All right.
Peace out.